Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I'm going to have a wonderful conversation with an author who has written a book titled The Littlest SailBoat, A Journey of the Soul. And Theresa, I am so excited to talk to you about this. But before we actually get into the questions, because we've been chatting a little bit before we started recording, why don't you give yourself an introduction to everyone who's listening who maybe hasn't heard about you or the book?
Okay, well, I am a mother of three. I stopped working when I had kids because I had 3 in 3 years.
Wow.
Which put me in a terrible depression. I must have been postpartum, but I didn't even have time to know it. And I was sort of agnostic at the time. And I definitely thought there had to be something, but I didn't necessarily believe in everything I was being taught. And I was smoking at the time and I wanted to quit. And I went to self-hypnosis, learned self-hypnosis. And I had my very first experience, like really big experience. And that was, I saw with my eyes closed, a bright light come in the window and a dove flew on the window and landed on my shoulder. And when that happened, I just felt peace, like what the Bible says, surpassing all understanding. It happened to me. And I finished it and I said a quick prayer. I said, okay, if that happens again, I'm in hook, line, and sinker, and I'll figure this out. And about 3 weeks later, it happened again. And I said, okay. And somebody called me and said, go on a retreat. And I've read so many times that once you say yes, things start coming your way to help you along.
Sure.
And that's exactly what happened. And I went on the retreat, amazing retreat, filled with love. I went on it again next year as somebody who was going to be a witness to what I've learned so much. And it was wonderful. And it was the first time I audibly heard a voice telling me I need to keep doing this, which was really neat. And then I just was a sponge and I couldn't help myself. I wanted more and more and more. And so I started studying everything slowly. First, I went back into Catholicism. And then that's where I met Mother Charlotte, my first teacher, who used to say, don't just read Catholic stuff, read other Christian stuff, read other things, because you eat the meat and throw out the fat.
Yes.
Okay. So I took that line even further and started exploring other religions, other forms of people's spiritualities. I studied shamanism for 2 years. I studied pretty much anything I could get my hands on because I just loved it all. And each one was filled with so much. And that's why in my book, one of my definitions of myself is student for life, because God is so vast, so magnificent, source, divine, Mother Earth, whatever you want to call what you relate to, is so magnificent. You'll never know it all. You just soak it in and learn more and more. So that's a very long summation of my life.
I love it though, in part because we as children are taught, go to school, learn it, get a job, go out in life, and then you know everything. And the truth is, it doesn't matter how old I get. I am constantly relearning, whether it's relearning something I learned when I was a child or relearning how to process the world because it changes so quickly and there's so much that's happening. So I think that constantly being a student in whatever way that means to you, whether it's spiritual, whether it's, maybe you're someone who just likes to learn. So you want to learn mathematics and languages and all of those things, whatever it happens to be, that's the human experience, right? Constantly learning and growing and changing.
And, I've got, all these different degrees, doesn't matter, never cared. So I'm also a reverend, and I didn't become a reverend because I wanted to be a reverend. I became a reverend because I wanted to learn about all the other religions. So it was international. It was a seminary for all faiths.
Awesome.
And it was so much fun, but it was not done because I wanted to be a reverend. I wanted to learn.
Right. Which is, I think, so important, especially, you had mentioned 3 kids in 3 years, possibly in, a postpartum depression state. It's hard in this world, especially today, to figure out how to find joy, get yourself out of sort of those circumstances when you're overwhelmed with 3 kids. 3 kids is a lot. no matter who you are, 3 kids in 3 years is a lot. So to be able to find your way to something that brought you joy and helped you experience life so that you could do that with your kids as well and teach them to keep learning and growing, that's huge.
Thanks. It's been a wonderful growing period.
So most people who experience something, even if it is this sort of spiritual awakening, don't necessarily say to themselves, I'm going to sit down and write a book. What made you sit down and do the book? That's a
Well,
lot of work.
actually, it was actually because of the school, because I went into a total panic. They said, okay, you have to write your final paper, has to be on what your ministry will look like. If you had all the money in the world to work with, what is your ministry? And I'm thinking, that's not my goal. This was not my goal.
Right.
And what came to me, I talked to the head of the school going, this was not my goal. And she said, okay, well, there's got to be something here for you. You're here. And I went, okay. And all of a sudden, a memory came back to me. And I don't remember if somebody said it to me or I said it to somebody else. But I said, I'm like a little sailboat. I go in and out of people's lives as I'm needed and then go away and go to another port. And I went, oh, okay, that's my final paper. That's my ministry. I'm going to write a book about it. And
I
that's how the book
love
came
that.
about.
Oh my God. So amazing. And such a great little metaphor because I think often, especially nowadays, we live in this world that's told us, you make friends in college and you have them for life and people stay in your life forever. But I think people are really waking up to the fact that no, people are like seasons. They come into your life or you come into theirs for whatever the season is. And then things change and you adapt. And maybe you wander away or you sail away in your little boat for a little while. And maybe the waters will bring you back to that person, but maybe they won't. Maybe you're on to a new, better, more magical place. Who knows?
And it's important to know that it's okay to let go when it's time to let go, because sometimes people are meant to be in your life your whole life. And sometimes people are only meant to be there for a little period of time. And you could say it's for their benefit or your benefit, but quite frankly, it's for both benefit, because if you're giving, the other one's receiving, and it's sort of an interchange that you're both receiving and giving and sharing.
Yes.
And so you both have an opportunity to grow, learn, and more importantly, be in a relationship for whatever period of time that is.
Yes, I love that. I was actually just having a conversation the other day with my sister-in-law about every person who is in your life is a relationship, even though we don't necessarily label it that way. Even if it's just, a coworker of some sort, that's a relationship. It's a different kind of relationship than an intimate relationship, but you are literally in relationship in some way with every person that you meet and sort of what that entails. Because I love this idea for me personally of what I think a relationship is always evolving depending on the person that I'm talking about, what I think my relationship to them is versus what they think it is. And also, as I change and grow, my idea of all of those relationships tend to change and grow. My expectation of relationships with people changes and grows because I grow, I change, I learn. Maybe I adapt to some new religion that I'm starting to learn about, or some spiritual teaching that I have learned. And all of those things sort of change. So for me, the idea that whatever the relationship is, it is meant to benefit us both in some way, whatever that growth looks like, whatever that change looks like, is such a magical thing because so often, especially nowadays, I find myself constantly on the move and in different areas of the world with different relationships happening with different people. So it's nice, even though we are in this really digitally connected world, it's nice to know I don't have to emotionally consistently be connected to the same people forever, but I can be if I choose to.
Yep. But you're also in relationship with the tree.
Yes.
And the animals and everything. And I have some friends that are really unbelievable with nature, the way they love and are connected in relationship with all of nature. And it's beautiful to watch. Like they touch a tree And it's almost like, somehow they're in relationship at that moment. And
They
it's
feel
just
it.
beautiful to even take it further than people, but to everything.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes. I 100% know people that you're talking about because it's almost like you're watching this. It's like a feeling that takes place between the two of them. And you kind of, I don't know, for me personally, I kind of feel like I'm interrupting something just by witnessing it. But it's so magical to see that kind of connection to the world around us.
I just watch it sometimes thinking, I want to be connected with nature like that, which guess what? I'm going to work on that. and be able to know, wow, look at this beautiful old. And sometimes I see a really old tree, like, it's been here for a long time. And I do connect to it. But when people that just everything they see is magical to them, it's beautiful to watch.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love this. I do want to ask you, though, for everyone who's listening, because a lot of people who do listen to this podcast tend to be people who are looking to make a change in their life, or they're looking to find something, but they don't know what that something is. Where would you suggest for them to start? Because you've kind of walked the journey of self growth, improvement, curiosity, all of the things.
Well, I guess I'll go to my period in life where I probably was at my worst. And I already had all three kids. This is before I started waking up to something different. And I just started going, there's got to be a better way. Life has got to be more than this. And I didn't even realize some of the emotions I was getting caught up in. Anger, God forbid I allowed myself to be angry. You can't be angry. And then loneliness and guilt and shame and blah, 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 and all these things that I allowed to take over. And how did I want to deal with them? Let's see. I'll go shopping. I'm going to buy all this stuff that I'm going to regret in about a week because now I have to pay for it, or I knew this, or I knew that, or whatever it was going to be. And I was just, there's got to be a different way. And then I had my first meeting with something divine. And then it started, and I was able to start saying, okay, doing anything from the outside in is never going to make you happy. If it doesn't start from the inside out. Now, I'm not saying that stuff isn't wonderful.
Sure.
But if you're trying to be happy through that stuff, it's not going to happen.
Right.
You have to become happy here first. And that's why I liked all religions, because it's not about being a Christian or a Muslim or Jewish. It doesn't matter. You have to find that inner place where divine resides and let that lead the way, instead of going, I'm going to find it out here somewhere. It's not going to happen.
I love that. What a great piece of advice for everyone. And it brings me to one of the questions that I ask everyone who comes onto this podcast, which is, what does happiness mean to you? Because it is very different to everybody. And what I typically tell people, for me personally on this podcast especially, is it can change day to day. My definition of happiness, what it means to me, how I process it. So what does happiness mean to you?
Okay, can I read you a quote?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is at the beginning of my book, and this is what I chose to start my book with, which, turn to the page. Okay. The only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source, the depth of the ocean. For when that is in alignment, all of your creations, your choice for relationships, and how you will be within them will flow effortlessly from that alignment. Therefore, seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you.
Amazing.
When I choose, and believe me, I don't always choose to listen to what's coming from the depths of my being. I always have this joke. I can hear the voice really clearly saying, do this. And me going, no, I don't want to. But I know if I listen is where I'll be happy.
Hard to listen sometimes, though.
I'm not so happy at the moment because my ego is so not happy with the choice. And I call my ego screaming Mimi. and she likes to be queen. And dethroning her sometimes is very difficult. You're not going to, you don't want to kill her because it's part of your makeup.
Right.
But she's got to be put in her proper place.
I love that. I kind of want to name my ego now. I love that.
Oh, because then you could talk to it and go, you're being awful loud right now.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting that you say that because I have had people tell me in the past, name it, and then you can, communicate with it, and then you can tell it when it needs to, calm down or whatever. And it's something I have never done. Although, the more I talk about it, the more I think, you know what, that part of me absolutely needs to have some sort of a label because, she can be a little bossy sometimes. She can be a little demanding and needs to be told where to go. I love it. I love it. I don't want to keep you too long, obviously. I want to respect your time and everyone who is listening. So before I let you go, because you have been on what I would label as a pretty amazing spiritual journey, for most people, they don't have that kind of experience. What would you say to people who maybe are looking to have an experience and don't even know where to start?
Well, I'm going to start with what Mother Charlotte recommended to me. You start at wherever you can start. If you're depressed or whatever, and all you could say is please help, that's where you start. From wherever you could be. And, sometimes you start climbing and you go back down because it's not an upward journey. It's sort of like this. And you when you're in a hard time, you lose a family member or you're going through something and it's dark and you can't seem to pull yourself up. Go do something. If what you enjoy is sitting by the water, go sit by the water for a few minutes. If what you do is sit in a church for a few minutes. If you need to talk to a friend and just pick a friend that will listen and not try to just go, it's going to be okay.
Right.
But just let you be in your pain. But you have to get to the bottom denominator of what you can do to start.
Oh my God, such great advice. And for everyone who is listening, I, of course, as always, I'm going to post in the show notes the link, not just to the book, but to everything that I have for Theresa so that you can follow, you can get in touch, you can communicate, you can do all of the things that you want to do. Because let's face it, this has been an amazing conversation. And I would probably talk to you for 2 or 3 hours if I could. So I am happy, Theresa, to have you back anytime if you want to come back on the podcast and have another conversation. Because honestly, for me personally, the conversation that we had even before we started recording has been amazing because I am at this stage in my life where life is changing, as we discussed. And I think sometimes it's just nice, as we were saying, to hear other people have been through it, but not just that they have some sort of even guidepost, like, yes, it sucks right now. But as you were explaining to me before we started recording, it's that cycle. It sucks right now. It will go back to the better place. And then it will go back to the suck. And then it will go back to the better place. And it's sort of just that cycle of life and getting back to the blessings as well as dealing with things that are not quite so fun in this whole journey. So,
but the things that are not so fun are still, if you choose to look at it, are still blessings.
Right.
Because those are the times that really help you to dig in and figure out what's it all about, Alfie, for growth.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Theresa. I appreciate your time so much. And like I said, I am happy to have you back on the podcast anytime.
I'd love to come back. I so enjoyed this time and I just enjoy sharing. I really do.
Well, then we will definitely, once I stop recording, we will set up something and we will get you back in the books for later this year.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. And again, I will post in the show notes all of the ways you can get in touch. You can check out the book. You can do all of the things. And I hope you guys all have a great week. Thanks for listening.